Beginning of a big West Coast road trip for the Mets sees New York go 2-2 in San Diego as we welcome you to the Queens Connection, episode number 36, a production of Patton Sports Creative. I am your host, Andrew Patton, joined by the co-host, Corne Hogeveen. Corne, like I said, split in San Diego. I think you're going to take that 9 times out of 10. Like I said to you in the chat, it just seems like the Mets have a knack of making that last game the most irritating one, so people don't maybe look at the bigger picture there.
Yes, that depends on which series. I mean, the series against Baltimore before you won with a walk-off, but yeah, it happens. 2-2. Let's look at the bigger picture. 2-2 in San Diego. You take that obviously with Atlanta playing good right now. You are losing ground a little bit, which is obviously not what you want. But I think you can't complain about going 2-2 against one of the best teams after the All-Star break. And yeah, I'll take that. I also thought there were some good games played. I think the only real loss we had was obviously when Paul Blackburn just didn't play well. But even the Sunday game, I thought the Mets played a good ball game, which unfortunately they ended up losing. You can lose games when you're playing well, and I think that happened. So overall, I think the Mets are playing good baseball, and I'm not overly worried. Although the record obviously, or the standings obviously, are slowly we are losing ground, which obviously not good, but still just 3 games out. So it can turn quickly, especially when you have some games left against that ball club you are behind.
Oh, I don't want to go on my mini rant here or anything like that about the scheduling or whatnot, but wouldn't it be more fun if the Mets were playing, say, the Atlanta Braves this weekend rather than the Chicago White Sox? I'm just saying, more games against National League teams rather than American League teams. But that's just my opinion. It's not so highly valued by the commissioner as compared to maybe some other people. Uh, no, so
Logical, reasonable.
reason. Thank you. So, uh, but let's get into this series of the Padres. Let's start last Thursday, where the Mets did win the opener 8-3. A game that was a lot closer for the most part. So let's not get sidetracked there by the score. This was a 3-1 ball game for the majority of the night. It was started by Luis Severino, who looked good through the first 4. Did get through the 5th, but then all of a sudden just kind of hit a wall there in the 5th inning. Hat tip to Danny Young in the bullpen, who pitched very well out of there. Reed Garrett did pitch a scoreless inning because he got a big ground ball, but he did re-Garrett things and walk the leadoff hitter, which you never really want to do. And the Mets did that often in this series, particularly in the number 9 spot with McCoy there for the Padres. But overall, an 8-3 win for the New York Mets, a good start to the road trip, and the offense performed very well. Guys with some multi-hit games, particularly at the bottom of the order. You look at McNeil and Taylor in the 8 and 9 spots; they had a couple hits, and then at the top with Lindor and Vientos, who had multiple hits. Alonso had 3 hits. So, a game. I mean, maybe you'd want to see Severino go a little bit further, but overall, you look at this game, and I'd say it was a very good win for the New York Mets, and like I said, it maybe gave you a good, nice little kickstart to this West Coast road trip.
Yeah, you faced Dylan Cease, who was pretty darn good after the All-Star break. So that's, to me, that's, I think, even in the against Cease, sorry about that, they hit the ball hard as well. I think that first inning was telling where they hit a lot of balls hard. So, and it ended up with 17 hits. I think 17 hits. When you face a guy like Dylan Cease for 7 innings, I think you did pretty well on the offensive side. You can't ask for a lot more. Um, Severino also have to mention that he came off that complete game, which maybe he ran out of gas after 4. That's reasonable. Still a guy with not a long history with pitching a lot of innings in recent years. So maybe it got to him a little bit. What was noticeable about Seffi's outing is that his sweeper, he used it 40% of the time, and we on this podcast have said that Luis Severino earlier in the year when he struggled just didn't throw his sweeper a lot. So I'm always happy when I see him utilizing that pitch more. And yeah, that was season high for him. So I thought that was great. And the Mets made some fine defensive plays behind him. Like most of this series, they did well on the defense. A huge play by Jose Iglesias on the double play. So overall, I think it was a tremendous game for the Mets. They came into a red hot team and took the first game, and I think that's always huge in a 4-game series to take game one, and they did that, and can't complain.
No, and you mentioned Iglesias there. He also had the multi-hit game. Same with Jesse Winker. So, like I said, the bats were good in that game. Like, a good point by you that early in the game, they hit into some hard outs against Dylan Cease. So you kind of tell that they were kind of seeing the ball well to start the game. Obviously, Dylan Cease eventually settled in and held the Mets down, and the Padres held the Mets down until that ninth inning. When it kind of exploded for 5 runs there to kind of seal the deal. And you talk about Severino sweeper, slider, whatever you want to call it. It was very good. There was a lot of movement, sometimes maybe too much movement on it at times. But no, like you said, we've talked about his lack of usage of that pitch, particularly more towards the end of June, the beginning of July. Now he's throwing it a little bit more, and like you said, a season high with that usage against the Padres, and it was a very effective pitch for him. So maybe that's going to be a new trend for Severino. We've seen him, I think, adapt as teams have adapted to him. So he got teams used to the sinkers inside the righties and whatnot, and maybe now he's going to start to utilize that sweeper a little bit more. So a good first game for the Mets out in San Diego. Fortunately, we can't say the same for Game Two, where the Mets were shut out 7-0 by the Padres. They only got 2 hits after having 17 the night before. Those came off the bats of Francisco Lindor and Starling Marte. The Mets struck out 14 times in this game, and like you kind of talked about it in your opening monologue, Paul Blackburn not at his best in this outing. 2 in the third, he did leave early because he got drilled in the hand. But 10 hits, 5 runs, all of which were earned, 1 strikeout, 2 home runs allowed by Paul Blackburn, who is now on the IL. The Mets will need a starter. I would assume probably in the White Sox series because when you're playing the Diamondbacks, I know they talked about this a little bit on the SNY broadcast Saturday or Sunday. I can't remember which day, but they were debating which day that Tyler McGill would likely pitch. It seems pretty obvious McGill is going to be the guy. I think you got to uh, put your best starters out there against the Arizona Diamondbacks because this is a team you're chasing. If you can't beat the White Sox, even with Jose Quintana and Tyler McGill, and we'll get to Quintana in a second. I feel kind of bad maybe looping him into Tyler McGill there. But if you can't beat the White Sox with those guys, then you probably don't deserve to make the playoffs. So, but anyway, no, we're going down far down that rabbit hole. At least I am anyway. But Paul Blackburn being out, it is big for the Mets. This wasn't a good outing. Now, 2 of his last 3 outings have been pretty rough, to say the least. Uh, with the Padres offense, were they just sitting on cutters because he's been throwing his cutter a lot lately since he's come to the Mets. So were the Padres looking for cutters? Was it just a lack of command? What went wrong for you in your mind with Paul Blackburn on Friday night?
I think Paul Blackburn is that type of pitcher that has those type of outings where he's not on, and when he's not on, he's just awful. He's obviously we see the stuff Paul Blackburn has, and we know he has to be, pinpoint for his outing with all of his pitches, and he just didn't have it. He was up a lot. He was behind in the count. I think he threw some breaking balls that were just hangers, so he didn't have any feel for any of his pitches. And then he's just extremely hittable. And I mean, he had 10 hits over 2 and 2/3, but 9 hits over the first 2 innings. I mean, that shows that he was extremely easy to hit. And yeah, like I said, he is a guy. He's like that Bartolo Colon guy, which we had for years. A guy who most of the time gives you quality, but at times he's just awful, and then you hope he will give you some innings and uh, gets tattooed. Unfortunately, I think that's what the Mets tried to do after the second inning, of course, with Paul Blackburn to get him some innings, but unfortunately the injury to his hands prevented that. But yeah, I think it's always tough for a team, especially when the Mets face Joe Musgrove, who they obviously we know that the Mets can't hit Joe Musgrove. It's even more difficult when your starting pitcher just allows so many hard hit contact. I think that's a little bit of yeah. Well, I think the feeling in a clubhouse probably goes like, oh well, let's get him tomorrow again, and maybe you hope to get a comeback somewhere. But I think it's reasonable that that the momentum is not there. I do have to say that the bullpen did tremendously behind Blackburn, Stanek, Young, Ottavino, all pitched 2 innings or 2 innings or a little bit more than 2 innings. I think that was huge after your starter goes down so quickly that those guys were able to give you innings to keep the bullpen somewhat rested.
Yeah, I think it's, I said to you on the chat, Joe Musgrove could have an ERA close to 9, a whip close to 1.8, coming in the pitch against the Mets, and he throws 7 shutout innings like he did. Like the Mets just don't hit Joe Musgrove for whatever reason. It's been a couple years of this now. I mean, so this we don't want to see Joe. We don't like Joe because every time he's on the mound against the Mets, he pitches tremendously, even without the help of maybe some sticky stuff. Who knows? But yeah, just a rough game on Friday for the Mets. So, like you said, they're looking to turn the page and maybe get a quality outing from David Peterson, and they got just that, and plus some long balls from Francisco Lindor in this game as they've won on Saturday 7-1. And those two guys I mentioned there, David Peterson and Francisco Lindor, were the MVPs of this game, or if we're going to do hockey, they do the 3 stars of the game. Well, they're probably both number 1 and number 2 stars of this game. Uh, Lindor 2 for 5 with the 5 RBIs to grand slam, and David Peterson 7 in the third of a 1 run ball, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, just 5 hits. So we talk about David Peterson on this podcast a lot because I have a weird man crush on him, and you think he's a pretty good pitcher as well. But the ERA is now down to 2.85, and something you mentioned as well in our chat. I don't want to steal your thunder. But the whip has come down as well. So those are obviously huge signs for David Peterson, for a guy who has he can have control issues every now and then. But really, these last 2 outings against uh, the Orioles and this one against the Padres, he's really been locked in on the mound.
Yeah, 2 good ball clubs, 2 good offensive ball clubs as well. So very impressed. Whip has come down. And I was watching his outing, and it just feels to me that his fastball is like heavy. It's not overpowering, so to speak, but hitters just don't seem to barrel it up. Even if you think they made a good swing, it's a fly out and it's not getting close to the wall. So maybe it throws that, like they say, that heavy bowling ball type of fastball. Obviously, with its length, same with Shamanaya, it gets to hitters quickly. So I think he found uh, a recipe with his pitches for a good way to not maybe strike out the world, but just get soft contact, gets a lot of ground balls over the last 2 outings. I mean, that's just 2 strikeouts in this outing. So even when his strikeout stuff isn't on, he still gets soft contact, and I think it helps him a lot. I think I don't know the strikeouts per 9 innings on the top of my head, but I won't bet it's that high. but still he's been very effective. So not only David Peterson can pitch around jams, which he has done partly earlier in the year, limited damage, but he also shows that he can have his dominance in his way right now. And kudos to the Mets pitching gurus over there, because I truly believe that right now we saw a different David Peterson than we saw in the first couple of years. And maybe not the sexiest in the way of pitching, but I have a soft spot for lefties who get their outs a different way. So I'm definitely not mad at that. But I think the most people like strikeouts over maybe ground balls or something like that. But I think I do wonder, by the way, when I'm talking about this, is how his average exit velocity against him is. I can look that up after, no worries. But that just popped up my mind because I do think I see a lot of soft contact, but sometimes good to know if that is also true.
Yeah, I think you make an interesting point there about the soft contact and whatnot, because the last two seasons, 22, 23, the talk was David Peterson striking out guys a lot more. And obviously, beginning of last year was not a great start for David Peterson. He did come back in the latter part of the season and pitched pretty well, but I'd be curious to go look at uh, the stat lines from those last couple of outings in September to see if there were maybe more outs on the ground or in the air rather than striking guys out. Because obviously the K per nine is probably down a couple ticks from last year to last 2 years and whatnot. But David Peterson right now is, well, I say right now because Severino and Manai are pitching really well as too. Uh, but that's your top three right there easily, and that's why I was making the point, and they were saying on the broadcast, well, he's going to pitch the day game in Arizona. The ball flies out of there, and I don't know if you want Peterson in there or whatnot, but I would much rather have David Peterson pitch that game than Tyler McGill. It's a huge game for the Mets, who are chasing this team in the wild card standings in the Arizona Diamondbacks, and you need to throw your best three guns out there. Just give the Diamondbacks your best, and if Peterson is on, the Diamondbacks won't be lifting the ball as much. He'll be hitting onto the ground. So I'll take my chances with David Peterson trying to get this red hot Arizona lineup to hit balls on the ground rather than Tyler McGill out there against them. Because right now, there's like no faith in Tyler McGill is going to give you a solid outing. With David Peterson, the track record of late, there's a pretty good chance that he's going to give you, a solid outing or at least keep you in the ball game. So pitch Peterson on Thursday if you're the New York Mets, in my opinion.
Who said that Peterson wasn't a good fit in Diamondbacks ballpark?
I believe on the SNY broadcast they were kind of speculating like, well, do you want pitch Peterson on regular rest in Arizona and stuff like that? And I was saying, you got with this series with how big it is, you need to throw your best three guns out there, and the Mets are doing that in the first two games with Manaea and Severino. You put David Peterson out there against the Arizona Diamondbacks. You don't waste David Peterson against the Chicago White Sox. Even though all games are important now for the Mets, you should be able to handle the White Sox if without your you know, without some of your
Yeah,
better pitchers.
I totally agree. I did wonder. I just wondered who said that because the guy has allowed 6 home runs this year. What are we talking about? Why are we talking about David Peterson uh, in 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 a fly ball ballpark where he has a pretty darn good ground ball rate?
David Peterson, home runs per 9 innings this year, 0.74.
Right. So what the hell are we talking about?
I don't know. That's what they were speculating. That's just what I'm saying. That they were talking about that either. I believe it was
I'm
Sunday. I
happy
think.
I'm happy that I missed that because I would be very infuriated if I heard that on the broadcast.
Yep.
And I'm mostly not that infuriated, but sometimes the broadcast just says things that just are mind-boggling bad, and then a lot of fans follow that because they listen to what the broadcast said. You're talking about a guy who's, yeah, sorry, and I just can't believe that they said that. You're talking about a guy who hasn't allowed home runs who will be pitching in a home run ballpark. That sounds like a great plan to me.
Opponent slug this year, 351 against David Peterson, 670, 678 OPS. Let's not pitch
Yeah,
him against bad. Let's not pitch him against a potent Diamondbacks lineup. We gotta save him to face the tough Chicago White Sox, who are on track to pass the 62 Mets for most losses in the season. Let's use David Peterson in that series.
that too, totally. But just the way they said that they don't want Peterson pitching in that ballpark makes me believe, if I listen to it, that they don't like his odds in that ballpark, and it's just completely wrong. That's exactly what you want in that ballpark. It's like going to Colorado and say, "Well, we need a guy that allows a lot of hits in Colorado because that will work." No, then you have strikeouts, ground ball guys. So it's just so wrong on so many levels, and that just shocks me. Obviously, I also agree with your point about facing the White Sox. I think the White Sox are so bad that even Tyler McGill should be all right there, and the Mets offense should also be good against that pitching. So definitely your best 3 arms against the Diamondbacks, and if that's a possibility, like it is right now with the off day, it's a no-brainer to me. I would be shocked if that's not how they go. That's the only reasoning I would understand, is that they would like to ease Peterson somewhat, but I wouldn't be a fan of that move. Let me say it like that.
Well, we went down this rabbit hole a little bit with David Pearson. I did lead the charge on that, so that's just partially the point for me. But let's quickly touch on Lindor because the 2 home runs, the grand slam. A lot of talk about Lindor and his MVP candidacy. I think he's going to finish in the top three. It's just a matter of, is he going to actually win the MVP? I believe I believe that's Fangraphs WAR. He's at the top of the National League. But Otani is having this unbelievable season with the Dodgers with his bat, doing it as a DH. There's been no full time DH to ever win the MVP. It could be the case this year, but what in your mind are the chances? Like, how good of a chance does Lindor actually have to win the MVP? Because if you ask me, it's probably going to be Otani. Should it be Otani based on his stat line? Probably. But they made a good point on SNY last night. I didn't actually watch the show, I just saw a snippet that where would the Mets be without Francisco Lindor right now? I believe this is Will Salmon of The Athletic who made this point, who does a great job covering the Mets. If Lindor's not on this team, the Mets are pretty much where they are, you know, back in May, at the end of May. That's going to continue to ride through this whole season and whatnot. It's hard to single a guy out for being the sole reason why the Mets are in this position, but Francisco Lindor is a monster part of why the Mets are where they are right now.
Yeah, on all aspects of the game as well. In my honest opinion, the DH winning the MVP is like a reliever winning the Cy Young, and Otani gets close to that because he's been so good. But I think Lindor, with one, how he plays, how he leads, how he's playing a prime position defensively so well, I think it would be different if Lindor was a first baseman. Then I think it would be clearer Otani. But he's a shortstop who plays every single day, who is out there playing elite defense, and who's out there probably getting a 30-30 year yet again, um, coming off a horrendous first month. He's been carrying us for months. Um, and to me, the ability to play a premier position every single day at such a high level is such a big thing for me, uh, because I do like the MVP to be a player who does everything well and not just bat well. And Lindor is also, to me, too good of a defensive player again, the prime position to just look at the offensive stat line. I think that's a major plus for Francisco Lindor, but obviously the historic season Shohei Ohtani is having, we can't deny that. I think right now, unfortunately, he's the front runner, but I don't agree with it because for the reasons I just mentioned.
Well, it'll be an interesting thing to watch down this last month of the season. Obviously, we're pulling for Lindor, be the first at Met to win the MVP, and I'd be curious to see the when was the last time someone won the MVP and wasn't an All Star in the same season. That I don't know that off the top of my head. You have to do some research, but it'd probably be the
It's
first time in a while if it's ever
it's,
happened.
it's fitting for Lindor, who is always getting snubbed. So it would be hilarious if all of a sudden he does get that MVP. By the way, while he has been snubbed for years for multiple awards, and yeah, like you said, the All Star games. I think last year it was also pretty crazy that he wasn't an All Star. This year it was even more crazy that he wasn't an All Star. So it should be funny that the main award he gets, while all those other things he doesn't get. It would just be hilarious to me.
Well, something like I said, something to watch, MVP watch down the last month of here of this season. So
Don't often MVP watch for us.
no, not no. Probably the last time was
David
Bel
Wright,
Bel Beltron in 06.
maybe David Wright 07.
Maybe David Wright 07, yeah. But it's been a while. It's been a while since Met has had a legit shot at winning the MVP. If you want to count Alonso 2019, I didn't think that was as much of a possibility compared to this case here with Lindor or those ones back in the day. Um, but
Absolutely.
the Lindor MVP campaign, will gladly jump on that and campaign Lindor for National League MVP. But thanks to Lindor and Peterson, the Mets took the first two of three in San Diego, and we're looking to take three of four, and it looked like it was going to go that way until some late inning troubles for the bullpen, and the Mets ended up losing 3-2. This is the game started by Jose Quintana, and a nice bounce back for Jose Quintana. Six and a third, 4 runs, or 4 hits, I should say, no runs, 2 walks, and no strikeouts, which was an interesting stat line there. A lot of ground balls. We talked about Peterson getting ground balls on Saturday. Uh, Quintana was able to get a lot of ground balls on Sunday as well. A home run from JD Martinez got the Mets on the board, followed up one by Mark Vientos in the seventh. So the Mets were up 2-0. And some great defense again. We saw Jose Iglesias with that crazy motorcycle kick start of second base to get an out there. A big caught stealing from Torrens to Lindor. So it just kind of felt like maybe the Mets were going to take 2 or 3 or 3 or 4 from the Padres, but unfortunately things started to kind of fall apart. Buto's command was off, and Jurickson Profar hit a 2-run home run after Quintana. Buto walked the number 9 hitter McCoy, who we talked about that a lot. Walking the number 9 hitter with this lineup that's very top heavy, I would say, is not a very smart idea. Profar ended up taking advantage of that. I think he's still taking a stroll around the bases as we speak. And then in the ninth inning, they brought Edwin Diaz in. And Fortunately, Jackson Merrill, who's trying to make his case for National League Rookie of the Year, wins it for the Padres. So a tough loss for the Mets. Unfortunately, once Martin Perez came out of the game, they were not able to generate a whole lot of offense because that's the direction the Padres went in, is to beef up the bullpen. They did get Jason Adam on Vientos' home run, but overall, just weren't able to hit the Padres bullpen, get the Padres in the game, and the offense eventually got going for them. Um, Biggest takeaway, is it Jose Quintana? Is it Buto struggles? He's kind of looked a little, I don't want to say iffy of late, but some command issues of late in his recent bullpen outings. What's the takeaway for you from Sunday?
Definitely Quintana. I think we desperately needed a good outing from Quintana, and he delivered. Unfortunately, it didn't end up in a win, but I think you go further with a little bit more confidence in Jose Quintana. I thought he looked really, really good. I think all of his pitches were commanded really well. Like you said, a lot of ground balls. Um, not a lot of hard hit contact as well, just like with David Peterson. So it was great to see out of Jose Quintana. Um, so that's to me is the main point. I think it was time for Buto to have some type of struggles. He's been so good for us that you can expect that to at some point not be a little bit worse. And same for Diaz, who just hung a slider, and a very good young hitter in Jackson Merrill made him pay. It was obviously an unfortunate loss, but overall, I think it was a well played game. I think the energy the match showed was really nice. And yeah, it's not shocking that the bullpen for the Padres is a difficult one to hit, and we all knew that. We hoped maybe you get a little bit more against Martin Perez, but Martin Perez actually saw the numbers. He was pretty darn good since becoming a Padre, and also I said that to you in the chat. I think with the bullpen, how the Padres bullpen is constructed, you take a guy, with a 4.50 ERA to give you like 4 or 5, hopefully 6 if he's good, and keeps you in the ball game, and hope that your bullpen shuts it down and your offense is good enough to um, to battle and to come back, and that's exactly what happened.
So a tough end to this series for the Mets in San Diego, especially on the day when the Braves lost. They could have picked up some ground on them. Unfortunately, weren't able to do that. So the Mets ended that series 2.5 back of the Braves for the final wild card spot. Monday was an off day for the Mets, but the Braves played and they beat the Twins. So as we look at the National League standings, you mentioned this earlier, but we'll do it again just because it's part of how we do our show. Uh, the Mets are 3 back of Atlanta for the last wild card spot. The Cubs, who have been playing well of late, are starting to creep up. They're 5.5 back. They're tied with the Giants with 66 wins and 66 losses. Um, the Braves are playing the Twins, like I mentioned, and that's a good ball club. Unfortunately, when Mets weren't able to get some help from the Twins. Like we said, 3 back of the Braves with about a month to go in this season, so it's possible. You just have to hope the Braves hit a little bit of a rough patch down this stretch, and the Mets get into a nice little groove. But like you said, there's some the end of the season. I believe it's the last road trip of the season. Some 3 games in Atlanta before they go to Milwaukee at the end of the year. So if you kind of keep it in that range, those games in Atlanta will be big for the Mets. So, but that's getting a little too far ahead of ourselves. Like you said, a month of baseball left to play. The Mets have to take care of business in the desert. But before we take care of that, we have to go down on the farm for the Corne's minor league minute, and there is definitely some things to be talking about from the Mets minor league system.
Definitely, there's always some things talking about until the season is over, I would say. Nick Rosselli, St. Lucie, solid day on Thursday, going 2 for 4. Yeah, he has a 798 OPS to start his pro career. Joel Diaz struggled with his control over 4 innings of 3-run ball, just 2 earned. He walked 5 over those 4 frames. Joseph Jabor pitched well in relief, 2 and a third scoreless with 2 strikeouts. Friday, I watched Franklin Gomez's outing. The young lefty had a difficult 2 innings, allowing some hits and having issues with his control, which resulted in a ton of pitches. The St. Lucie defense was also pretty bad behind him, which cost him a run in the third inning on a 5-0 loss. Hauke Ewan had 2 hit days and a shutout loss. A.J. Ewan just kept going this weekend. He had another 2 hit day on Saturday. Nick Rosselli also collected 2 hits. Joe Jairo Cuevas drove hit 2. St. Lucie bullpen was tremendous after Saul Garcia struggled, but it wasn't enough as St. Lucie lost on Saturday. But then came Sunday, when St. Lucie came back with a 7-run 9th inning to beat Palm Beach 8-5. Aforementioned A.J. Ewing did it again. He had 2 hits and he had a walk-off grand slam with 2 outs in the 9th inning on Sunday. He went 3 for 5. Judd Williams with 1 for 3 with a walk. Christian Rodriguez kept St. Lucie in the game with 4 scoreless innings. Brooklyn, Nick Morabito had a 2 hit day, was one of the few bright spots on Thursday. Zach Thornton struggled in his second start, allowing 5 runs over 3 innings. Lefty Gregory Luis made his Cyclones debut with 2 scoreless innings, striking out 2. The Franklin Gomez short outing did give me a chance to switch to Jonah Tong on Friday, and he was nasty. Tong, such a good fastball curveball combo, but his change has improved in my opinion as well from what I saw. And he threw some nasty sliders. He went 5 scoreless innings, around just 5 hits. Some were also in the, I should say, soft variety against Jonathan. One walk, 8 strikeouts. Um, Jersey Shore also stole 4 bases, which are a huge issue for the Cyclones. So that makes his scoreless outing even more impressive. So he was absolutely great. Tong outing was backed up by solid work by the Cyclones bullpen in a 4-1 win. Nick Morabito went 3 for 5 in another multi-hit day. Junior Tillian drove in 2 in a 3 for 4 day. Austin Troser was solid over 2 2/3 innings of run one ball in a 5-1 loss on Saturday. Ryan Emmons keeps pitching well with 2 scoreless innings, striking out 2. Second time watching Jack Wenninger on Sunday, and both times he struggled for an arm I like. And I, on this podcast, I mentioned as a guy I have my eye on. It's just a little bit, not that nice when I'm watching him that he doesn't pitch well. He went 2 innings, allowing 4 runs, 3 earned, striking out no batters. So Jack Wenninger, if you listen, please pitch well when I watch. I'm trying everything to let Mets fans know that you are an arm that I like, and then every time I watch, you don't pitch well. So next time, please pitch well. Binghamton, Stanley Constrega, and Drake Osborne collected a 3-hit game on Thursday. Constrega drove in 1 and scored 3 runs with a double, and Osborne drove in 2. Jalen Paul ran 2 for 4 with 2 doubles and an RBI. It was more than enough for Jonathan Pintaro, who went 7 strong, allowing 1 run on 2 hits with 3 strikeouts. Strong season for the free agent signing. 2 hit days for Kevin Parada and Jeremiah Jackson in a Friday loss. Another good day for Parada, going 2 for 4 with a 17 double and an RBI on Saturday. Stanley Constrega drove in 3 as Joander Suarez pitched well over 6 innings of 2-run ball. Suarez allowed just 1 earned on 4 hits without a walk and 5 strikeouts. And probably the main point for Binghamton, back-to-back strong outings for Nolan McLean, who went 4 2/3 innings of 1-run ball, allowing just 1 hit and 1 walk with 7 strikeouts. He also got the Player of the Week from the Binghamton Rumble Ponies, Pitcher of the Week. JT Shue got the save with 2 scoreless innings, striking out 3. He has a 1.35 ERA since joining the Mets organization in 13 and a third innings. Still shocks me that we got JT Shue for Tyler J. And Jalen Paul and Homerton is in the win. Is 10th. Syracuse, finally, unfortunately, Brett Beatty will likely miss the rest of the season due to a fractured finger. He got hit on the finger on Thursday. On that same game, Tidwell and Gacy both struggled in their outing as the Syracuse Mets lost big. Mike Brousseau hit his 14th of the year for the only run. A 6-run third helped Syracuse win on Friday. Drew Gilbert hit his second home run of his last 3 games. Austin Allen went 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs, and Jolmer Sanchez went 3 for 4 with 3 RBIs. Mike Vessel gave Syracuse innings, going 6 innings, allowing 4 runs but 3 earned, also known as the Vessel Special, with 5 strikeouts. Not often you win with just 1 hit, but the Syracuse Mets did that on Saturday. Austin Allen got the only hit and scored the only run on Luis Angel Acuña's sac fly. Syracuse also allowed just 1 hit. McGill went 4 2/3 innings, allowing that 1 hit and 2 walks with 6 strikeouts. Mitoli went 1 2/3 inning, 1 1/3 inning with 2 strikeouts. Fujinami went 2 with 1 K, and Krennic got the save in a 1-0 win. Watched Dominic Hamill's outing on Sunday. He really pitched well over the first 3 innings, showing a good fastball. I liked his overhand curveball, but struggled after. He didn't allow a hit over the first 3 and ended up allowing 3 runs on 5 hits in 4 1/3 innings, striking out 4. I do remember Hamill being a little bit higher velo guy than he showed. He was mostly around 93, but I also want to get your opinion about that. Maybe my memory didn't serve well, but I thought he was more like 94, 95, 96-ish. Drew Gilbert did hit the ball hard all Sunday and finally got rewarded in the 9th with a 3-run homer. Ritter, Bradley Jr., and Luis Angel Acuña had 2 hit days, but the bullpen struggled behind Hamill in the loss. Tyler Zuber, newly acquired Tyler Zuber, allowed 4 runs in his outing.
Well, I'm pulling up the box score or the MLB game track, whatever you want to call it, from back in spring training when the Mets played the Tigers in Lakeland, Florida, because that was a game I was at that was started by Dom Hamill. So I'm trying to see if I can grab some let's see, fastball 94, 94. So it's 94s on these fast. This is early in the game too, so I figured that's kind of a good indicator of his velocity. 94. It seems like he was pretty steadfast at 94 in that first inning here against the Tigers. Cutter about in the upper 80s.
Mhm.
Throwing a sweeper, kind of the high 70s. Fastball 94, 94. So I guess about mid 90s for Dom Hamill, but
Basically 94.
yeah, but I think there's uh I mean I guess we can go down a little bit of a rabbit hole here. We're a little bit ahead of schedule, or at least more than I thought we were going to be. Um, these guys, these arms in the system that have been talked about basically since the beginning of last year when they were all in Binghamton, Hamill, Vassell. I'm blanking on someone else. Feel like that's should be in there. Tidwell maybe, but I don't think that's him. I was thinking about. But I think there was
Our
some
tour
maybe, yeah,
was now
Stewart,
is
yeah,
now
it's not,
international.
yeah, maybe. Um, but I think when people mostly think about uh, good prospect arms in your system, I think people automatically assume 97, 98, which is not always the case. Um, so I think maybe there was a little, I don't want to say misinformation put out there, but maybe some misleading perhaps about guys'
Yeah,
arsenals. So maybe that's why we're
maybe.
thinking like higher velocity. I don't know. That's just speculation on my part.
I wasn't saying 97, 98. I said 94, 95. So it wasn't
Oh,
necessarily that much off.
oh, okay. I,
So I thought
I
it was a little bit higher. You didn't listen, Andrew.
no, I'm
I
not gonna
also
lie.
know.
I was typing up the episode description while you because I take that's when I take advantage. I try to speed up the process about getting the product out there for people. So
I
that's
get
what.
that. But I didn't say that he was high 90s, but I remembered he was more because I was watching him and he was really more 92, 93, which to me was just a tick down. And now, well, you said 94 in spring training, so probably was a little bit right about that. I said 94, 95. So uh, that's I thought that I remembered watching him hitting 94, 95 as well. Not necessarily what I was heard, but more of what I watched myself because I did. Oh, I'm sorry about that.
Someone's at the door. Gotta go answer
Yes,
it.
yes.
Well, while you go answer the door, I'm sure it's a very important message. I'll throw the question out there, and I can answer it first. Is I think there was probably a lot of expectations that Brett Beatty would be the September call up for the Mets, but now with the injury to Brett, you can be out. Think they said like 4 to 6 weeks. That's basically going to end the season, like Corne said in his minor league minute. So now the question becomes, who could be that September call up for the Mets? You just get one batter, one extra pitcher this year, which, or it's like been that the past couple of years, which I'm not entirely a fan of. I think you should be able to manipulate your roster however you want to manipulate your roster, but it's usually one arm, one bat that comes up in September. And now that's probably not going to be Brett Beatty, like I mentioned before, with his injury. So now the question becomes who could be that position player that gets called up? Is it going to be someone that's already on the 40-man roster? Do you want to bring DJ Stewart back up? I don't know about that just because they already have a lot of outfielders on the roster. But do they want a left handed bat? I don't know. Do they want someone with some MLB experience, Mike Brasso, who's been swinging the bat well of late for Syracuse. Is that someone you want called up for a stretch run? Do you want to give it to someone young in the system or hasn't had much major league experience? Does Luke Ritter finally crack it? Crack the roster, get his chance in the September call up? Do they go with a Drew Gilbert, a Luis Angel Acuna, one of these top prospect guys? I'm not sure. I would tend to think that they're probably going to lean more towards a guy with experience in the major leagues just based on uh, where they're at in a stretch run, a chase for a wild card spot. But maybe they'll surprise us. Maybe they'll look at Luke Ritter and his of versatility and his production in AAA and say he's kind of doing the same thing that Mike Brosso's done. Let's give this guy who's been in our system for years a chance. I'm not sure. I'd probably prefer to see that, but I'm not the one making the calls. That's Mr. David Stearns. But if you were to lean in one direction, as Corne has rejoined us from answering the door and getting the mail, um, what direction would you lean in towards that September call up for the position player?
Uh, well, funny that I saw one former Met who was in the Met system for a little bit. I saw he was claimed by the New York Yankees, and I thought that was a perfect fit for a, a September call up, and that was Duke Ellis, the fast guy that we had in the system for a little bit this year. Um, I think that's a type of player we missed a little bit. A guy who can come off the bench and steal a big base late in the game. Um, so maybe that's a kind of like a Luis Angel Acuna type of job. Also be a guy who can um, play anywhere in the field. I don't know when the Syracuse Mets uh, end. If that's also a couple of weeks away. I think it's a couple of weeks away. Maybe then you think, oh well, those couple of weeks for Luis Angel Acuna, um, he can get a sniff of the major leagues and have a different role that you probably hope that he has in years to come, and get some, level of uh, feeling in the major leagues. Um, Luke Ritter, I like Luke Ritter, and I hope at some point that he gets an opportunity too. But I think the Mets are pretty, pretty even in what they already have, so to speak. So they have pretty good backup infielders right now in Iglesias, and you are in the stretch run. So is the need for a DJ Stewart type, Luke Ritter type, any type like that, or hitter type that big? I don't know. So maybe it's gonna be Luis and Galacuna just for the defense slash stolen base uh, opportunities.
I made the point while you were out getting milk from the milkman um, that I hate these rules, these roster manipulation rules where you can only have X amount of pitchers on the roster and whatnot, because I think you make a great point there. It would probably be more beneficial for the Mets for those two September call-ups to be pitchers, put them in the bullpen, extra bullpen arms. But with a dictator Manfred saying you can only have your roster set this way and whatnot, that eliminates that possibility for the Mets, which I absolutely hate. Let teams construct their rosters the way they want to construct their rosters. Don't say we have a pitcher limit on how many you can have on the roster or whatnot. Um, so that's why they're going to have one of those call ups is going to be a position player. But like you said, what do they need on the bench that would serve them well for the last month? Like you said, maybe speed. So that Duke Ellis, if they had claimed him again, would probably fit. Just would have been another Terrence Gore, but that's fine, especially late in games. He could probably play some fine defense as well. Be fine out there. So it'll be interesting to see what the Mets do in that regard, because that is coming up on Sunday. Sunday is September 1st. So that's when the rosters expand from 26 to 28. What a big expansion that is. But oh well. All right. Let's talk about the these three games for the Mets in Arizona. Like we've already hammered this. It's a very important series for the New York Mets. So it starts tonight, 9:40 Eastern time. Sean Manaea against Eduardo Rodriguez. So some lefties going head to head there. Wednesday night, also 9:40 Eastern time. It's going to be Luis Severino against Brandon Pfaadt. I always screw up the name. I don't know if is it Pfaadt. I always say Pfaadt. I think it's Pfaadt, but I
I
don't
think
know.
it's fine.
It's that
I
that
call
that that
it
P.
fine.
Why can't it's
Yeah.
PF? So it's like it's so weird. Like
Oh,
the double A's. Very weird. I don't know. But he's pitched well for the Diamondbacks this year. And then Thursday, right now it's TBD for the Mets. We've made our case for David Peterson to start that game. That's going up against Ryan Nelson. So the Mets do avoid Zach Gowen, which is always nice. But obviously, it's still some good pitchers they will be facing against the Arizona Diamondbacks. So a lefty, two righties for the Diamondbacks and the Mets. Right now, a lefty, a righty, and a TBD. Hopefully, that the Mets are going to be throwing two lefties in this series. But if the New York Mets are to make this a successful series against the Arizona Diamondbacks, at least take 2 of 3 from this Diamondbacks ball club. They need some guys to be on their A game. So we're going to pick our players of the series. Who are those guys going to be? If you're listening and you're a New York Met, you should be hoping that I'm picking you because I'm on a hot streak when it comes to this. So Mr. Hogeveen, I got the pitcher last time. That was David Peterson. Pitched very well. So now you get the pitcher in this Diamondback series. Who are you going with for the New York Mets?
Oh, sorry, I wasn't listening. What was the question?
Ha ha ha. You're really funny. You should have your own Netflix special.
Oh yeah, thank you. I wouldn't mind. Netflix, give me a call. But yeah, no, we can pick Dave Peterson. So I'm going with Luis Severino. Back-to-back solid outings. He was pretty darn good. So I'm going with him. Usage of his sweeper was nice. So hopefully he can continue his hot streak.
I like that pick. This guy's been a little bit of a platoon player for the Mets of late, which I'm not sure why. But I'm going to go with Jeff McNeil, figuring that there's two righties. He's likely to play those 2 games. Maybe he'll get the start tonight against the lefty in Eduardo Rodriguez. But McNeil's probably going to play at least 2 of these 3 games. Like we said, he swung the bat well since the All-Star break. So let's go with Jeff McNeil to have a big series in the desert for the New York Mets. I think those are some good picks on our part. Obviously, no, you can't go wrong with Severino or Manaya or hopefully David Peterson. So if you're going the starter route, those are some very good choices there to choose from. And obviously, we talked about sometimes it's harder with a hitter to not repeat yourself, so you have to be a little creative. We know we've picked Jeff before in the past, but it's easy to say Francisco Lindor, Mark Vientos. The guys are swinging a hot bat. We like to be unique and different on this show.
Exactly. We try at least.
We try at least. That's right. Well, we did have our first ticket giveaway on our social media and whatnot, and we have to say congratulations to Amy Lee as she's won the 2 tickets for the Mets Red Sox game on Labor Day. So, Amy, congratulations! But do not fear, we have another giveaway coming. We will be giving away tickets tomorrow night. Well, not tomorrow night. The entry opens tomorrow night at 8 p.m. for 3 tickets to the Mets Nationals game on Tuesday, September 17th. So we will open up the polls. Not really the polls, but we will open up the drawing tomorrow at 8 p.m. Will be on our Facebook and Twitter. So make sure to like and follow us on either platform, and we will pick the winner for those tickets on Friday, September 6th. So that is likely when we will do our Red Sox series recap. So be on the lookout for that post on our Facebook and Twitter. If you do not follow us or like us on Facebook or Twitter, you can just search the Queen's Connection, pop right up. You can just click that like, follow button, and you're all set. And leave a comment as to why we should pick you. So just follow the instructions on the post, and we will pick the winner on Friday, September 6th. So good luck to everyone who gets entered in that. And with that being said, I think we're going to wrap things up here. So, Mr. Corne Hogeveen, we thank you for joining us as always and having you share your wisdom with us. And we hope you enjoy these next couple games here against the Arizona Diamondbacks.
That would be nice. That means that we have a good series.
Yeah, exactly. So these next couple of days are good for the Mets. It's good for us as well. So a programming note: we will not be joining you on Friday. We're going to combine the Diamondbacks and White Sox series into one episode that will drop on Labor Day on Monday. We will record that one early because I will also be in attendance at the Red Sox Mets Labor Day game. So we're going to do it extra early, make sure we can get the product out for the people, and then I'm heading south to Citi Field on that day. So we thank everyone for listening. Make sure to like, subscribe wherever you're listening on Spotify or YouTube. And we hope you enjoy these next couple of the games against Diamondbacks and this weekend against the Chicago White Sox.